Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's episode of Friday Morning Ramblings, the first one for 2022, wish you all good luck for the gardening season this year. We're going to talk about trellising. I have a lot of shorter videos on trellising if you want to check those out, if you don't want to listen to me ramble for 20 minutes or so. But I'm going to really go over the different trellises in my garden and just talk about how you set them up. People have been asking for a little bit more information. Now, basics are T-posts, and there are two examples here. One is better than the other one. So these are T-posts that we're setting up my fence out here, and I'll be fixing all this up. But now's a great time, with it being a nice balmy 38 degrees today, February 5th. I decided to come outside, shoot the first ramblings, and just kind of start walking around and formalizing my plans. Now is a great time to think about garden design. So these are T-posts that you can get at Home Depot, Lowe's. They're basic, they're very thin, they're not super sturdy, and they're just as expensive if you go to a place like Tractor Supply. And again, here's a thin one as an example, the cheaper version. Then if you went and you bought something thicker like this. These are also taller too, and you have to shop around. But I like these for my tomato stakes, other kinds of stakes, and for building trellises on. They're just sturdy, they're gonna last 10, 20 years. Here's another example of a trellis that you can use. This is fencing. This is old, it's being repurposed. You can reach your hand in there, you can tend to it. I'm actually gonna use these in this outside structure, and this was an accident. The pumpkins grew up here, did really well. I'm gonna use these to bring my pumpkins, maybe other melons, grow vertically up them and just let them hang around here. It's going to give me extra space. Because it's rusted, believe it or not, when you're 40, 50 feet away, it's hard to see this, so it doesn't stick out like an eyesore. So it looks pretty cool when you have your plants growing up. But you could put, grow beans up this, wide enough to reach in. You could grow peas, you could grow all kinds of different things. And because it's a cylinder, if this is outside your property, let me step back a second. A deer, of course, can come and chew down this side, but if you work the vines on the inside, it's going to protect what's on the inside. Not a perfect solution, but being a cylinder, the animals can't get inside. So you could lose crops on the outside, but you'll be able to harvest what's on the inside. I have different kinds of raised beds and containers here. This is one of my favorite. I was actually at Home Depot yesterday. This ladder mesh is back in there. This is 2 pieces. They're 4 inches wide, 10 feet tall. They're about $5, and you can make something bigger like this, use a wooden stake, grow whatever you want up that. This is my space for sweet potatoes, and right over here, you can see more of the ladder mesh. I have it cut in different sizes, and I basically will take that and make rainbows. One there, one there, one going across this way. And then I just kind of weave my sweet potato vines up the taller trellis. And it's an easier way for me to manage all that growth, get in there, inspect for insects, take care of it. So let's go inside. My guess is this door was frozen shut before. I'm gonna give it a hard tug. Still frozen. Okay, we're going to go in the other way. Before we go over to the other entrance, ladder mesh right in here. It'll have to be fixed up, of course. I'm still going to be harvesting these bean seeds for growing. I'll be doing a video on that. But 10-foot piece of the ladder mesh looped over that way, or rainbowed that way, and then another piece behind there. This was perfect for growing green beans. You could grow cucumbers up it. You could grow peas up this. And maybe secure it a little bit with a wooden stake down at the bottom or a tree branch, but it works perfectly well. A great way to grow vertically. I continue to buy ladders. I will do trellising with those. The only tip for there is down at the bottom. This one is about 2 years old. The bottom is starting to decay. You're going to want to spray that with some sort of sealant, whatever you want to choose, just so that moisture doesn't get in there and it doesn't rot the ladder down. I mean, you could leave it go, but you're going to lose this ladder in 3 or 4 years. All right, let's walk to the other side. So the trellis right in the back there, that's an A-frame trellis. That was just dropped in there as I was moving stuff around. This was peppers. These were peppers. I used bamboo stakes, I don't know, 5 feet tall to support the pepper plants. But this A-frame trellis is perfect for growing melons and heavier plants up. It collapses, it's flat. Don't have a location to buy that. I found them at a local hardware store. No name on them, and I just picked up a couple of them. Let me spin by here. I always hate getting my shadow in there. You can see the hose is a mess. I'll be doing videos on a solution to that over the next month. But there's the copy. There's a copy. There's another A-frame right there. And you can see that you can adjust the peak, the width, and it's just perfect for your heavier vining crops. One question I get a lot, especially with the cattle panel trellises, is do I set them up east to west or north to south? And behind me is pretty much east, over to there is west. So east to west would be setting up the cattle panel this way, rainbow that way. And then my north side is over there, and then my southern sun ends up over there. So the cattle panel would be, you know, south to north with the rainbow going this way. That really depends on what you want to grow and what you want the look to look like. It really doesn't matter when you go east to west or west to east with the rainbow. The southern sun's going to be over here, so more sun will get inside the tunnel. I'll show you an example when we go over there, and then I'll talk about the other one. These are telescoping poles. I've showed these before. That's about 18 feet high or so, and these are actually for birdhouses, but I got those at Tractor Supply, and this is where I grow my hop vines. Cemented in because they just need that support, but I can drop these all the way back down to 6 feet, 12 feet, up to 18 feet or something like that. But this is a solution if you want something really tall. Now, you could also put some fencing across there all the way up. You know, you'd have to get a ladder to harvest, but you could technically just weave vines straight up the middle if you put wire across or fencing across, but you could have this massive trellis right there, and that could look really cool. Maybe you're doing like birdhouse gourds or loofahs or something that would just, you know, be more of a less functional space, but really cool for a photograph or for a focal point of your garden. Just have this, you know, massive wall of gourds growing on there. It would look really, really cool. But I want you to also think about, you know, being creative. Function is important. I'm going to try and make this garden a little more functional, more food coming out of it. But I also, as you've heard me say, I love just kind of wandering through, rambling, looking at different things. So here is the example of the cattle panel. For those of you who don't know what that is, 4 feet wide, 16 feet long, used for farm animals. You can get this at Tractor Supply, but it's one rainbow this way, east to west, and another one east to west on that side. Makes a tunnel. So when I face this way to the southern sky, the sunlight's coming down here. The best sun is coming through here. So this is not blocking off any of the plants here. Sunlight whips right through there. Sunlight will even come inside. So this is one way to maximize the southern sun by setting it up this way. Now this is set up, you know, I just made a couple of structures like this where I could sink the bottom of the cattle panel into there. This will pop out. Tension is holding this in place. These aren't nailed in or anything like that. And then I do use an extra T-post right there, tied the cattle panel to that, and that just helps keep the shape. But this is solid. This is not going to go anywhere. And I really like, you know, this part of the garden. Let's come around here. Here's another example of cattle panel. Let's give it time to adjust there, right through there. And I think I have 3 pieces. And these are my muscadines. They're like grapes. So that's a whole trellis filled with fruit, like grapes, muscadines, and I can walk through there and actually harvest the bunches as, you know, they're ripening. Some classic old wooden posts. They're, you know, a little bit less expensive than the T-posts that I showed you, but they do decay, they do break. I'd rather spend a little more nowadays on the metal T-posts than the wood posts because they're going to last longer. Here's a setup using T-post over there, a wood post right in the middle, and then clothesline across. And this is supporting my blackberries. And again, I want to show you this. This is, you know, again, the standard thin fencing post or T-post you get at the big box stores. This is the stronger one. I like buying these in 8-foot pieces now so that I can sink them down at least a foot or so. They're solid, and then I still have all this height. I had to use another one on here because the brambles outgrow it. So you do want to have a bit of a strategy figuring out what you're going to grow up your trellis, and then, you know, put the right piece in there. Or you end up having to spend twice as much because you see I had to replace one T-post with a taller T-post. More examples of the A-frames right here. I have them all throughout the garden and they collapse. They're really, really nice. For tomatoes, T-posts, these are plastic covered metal. They're hollow. They're nice, they last, but they're fragile. If you put in too much weight or you're pushing it into the ground, a lot of times they bend right here, and then once that metal bends, it's real easy to snap. Bamboo posts are perfect. They last a long time. They don't seem to really decay from the soil, microbes, more setups of things I'm talking about. When you're using posts that come to your chin like I have in my garden, I do recommend putting corks on the end because I have poked my eye leaning in to tend to the garden plants. In here is asparagus. So instead of using jute, natural fiber that you have to replace all the time, this is galvanized wire that's used for electric fences. Super inexpensive. You can get like a 1/4 mile of this wire for, let's just say $18 to $25. Tractor Supply or farm supply stores. And I just do what you see here. As the asparagus will come up, I'll weave it through here. This will keep it from flopping over the peas in here. And it's going to last, again, years. I mean, I don't see where it's going to go anywhere, actually. They are on the thinner T-post. Standard hoops for tomatoes. You can use those for peas. You can use those for peppers. Getting in a little bit closer, you can see that these are the thicker wired tomato cages. That's what you really want to buy. We're going to get to some of the thinner ones. They don't lose their shape. They're nice and solid. They're good to go. Another tomato cage, the orange one. I think I have some of those poking up. And people always ask, where did I get them? Came from my mom. She ordered them years ago, and I just brought them over to my garden. Here are the flimsier wire cages, and these are great for like peas, beans, like even the bush beans, not pole beans, because pole beans will get 8-10 feet tall. But they're kind of thin. They're not really strong for heavy crops, like if you're doing beefsteak tomatoes or something. It's real easy for that plant to fall over with this thinner wire gauge. But perfect for peppers. You know, that's what I use in this space here. So here's a nice example of one piece of cattle panel arched east to west so that the sun is coming from the south and passing through it. And this is just set up. This is a simple design that anybody can really make. These are small T-posts. They're not expensive, perfect for this. I just put them in the ground. You want about 4 feet of space through here. It makes the nice arch. The arch is probably 7 feet tall. I don't know what the math works out, but depending on the space here, the arch could be higher or a little bit lower, but you want it to be at least, you know, 6.5 feet tall so that you can walk through it. And also, if you're going to have plants growing some of their produce down, you don't want them, you know, being right in your face. You want to be able to walk through there. So I like this setup, but it's just 3 T-posts through here. You just bend the cattle pedal and push it in. It wants to push outward. It stays in place. This will stay up here really forever. Again, another one of the A-frames. Like I said, I have them all over the garden. I do have basic trellises made out of wood. That'll last a while. And I just like that look, so it looks pretty cool. Let me spin back around this way. There's a cattle panel we'll come back to, and you can see that that one goes from north to south. So when the sun is over there, it's casting shade into there, and that might be a strategy you want to use, where plants that don't like the summer heat are shaded off by your trellis, and that's one way to use trellises to your benefit to also grow more in the ground. Here's what it looks like. South right behind me. Wanted to show you this one, and you can see that I've replaced a lot of my T-posts with the thick ones. This is one piece of cattle panel dropped into the box. You've seen this one before. Before I filled it, I just set the boxes up, you know, with a distance of probably, I don't know what that is, maybe 5 feet. Dropped in the cattle panel and then filled it, and that's going to stay in shape, you know, for as long as you want. You don't have to use the cattle panel piece. You could just build trellises right up the side this way and then another one over there. We'll get to examples of that. But I like having the arch because when this is covered, it's going to keep the soil down here cooler, and I'll grow leafier greens a little bit longer into the warm summer. This is one that I made. This was kind of expensive because wood has gotten expensive. But these are decking rails. And you just buy one piece of the decking rail, another piece of the decking rail. I have a video on this. And then, you know, just go and get a good size hinge and then screw them onto the hinge. And this will collapse. It'll be flat if I want to take it in. It's made out of pressure treated wood, so it's not going to decay down there. But this will close flat, and it's really easy to store. Here's another ladder. This is the hose link. This is what I use now instead of having those hoses lay around. I'll be doing a video. I am affiliated with them this year. Love the product. There's the mesh, the ladder mesh. And if you just weave a wooden stick or anything through it, then you can kind of just drop these wherever you want in your garden, and you can grow 8 feet tall straight up that, you know, beans, something like that would look cool. Let me drop this down carefully. This is going to be my tomato section. This is the wire rack that I always talk about. These are years and years old, you know. Just secure them to some posts. You could use metal posts, wood posts, and I've been growing beans up those. You could grow cucumbers, anything really. The heavier the crop, the more support you're going to need. So if the crop is kind of light, the post up to here will work perfectly fine. If you're growing something heavier, you're going to want a post to come up to here more and support that. And you can see examples I have, you know, through the garden. Here's a real basic design. You know, it's not really focusing on anything specific, just a couple of different posts. Put some jute across there, grow whatever you want up that. Let's see if this is, that's pretty solid. I get the thicker jute, so it lasts about 2 years, but this will decay and it will break down. Again, here is more of the wire racks for closets. They come in all different widths and heights, but I grew cucumbers in here. I'll be growing them again. They were really successful. Trellising up the cucumbers, rather than crawling across the ground and taking up that space, you grow vertically. You can grow a lot more produce in a smaller space. But I like being able to come in on this side, tend it, inspect the undersides of the leaves, and then you spin around to the other side and do the same. There's one of those tomato cages that I got from my mom. And this is set up too, this is important, because east, west, north, the sun is behind me, the southern sun. That's where the maximum sun is. And I set this up south to north or north to south so that the southern sun is hitting both sides. And that's probably, if you're going to take anything from this video, that's how you decide which way you want to put your trellises. So if it's south to north, you're going to get maximum sun on this side, and the shadow is really going to be cast that way, a thinner shadow footprint, than if I put it this way, and then the shadow completely covered all the plants in there. So with the southern sun hitting here, I grew Swiss chard along here while I grew cucumbers up there. And that's the strategy you use for placing your trellises. So here's a good example of a massive trellis I had made with the wire racks, and they were actually tied to the cheaper version of the T-posts, and they actually just snapped right off at the bottom, if you can see that. So this will all have to be rebuilt. So think about the weight of what you're growing up it, and then also the direction, north to south, or well, south to north, and then that's east to west. And you can see how that casts shade right down into that garden. That's part of what I want. The other thing to think about is the southern sun is behind me, so it's over here. If I put this trellis right there, it would cast shade all the way down onto the squash that I want to be growing in here. So I put the trellis behind there, so the southern sun is hitting the main plant, then I grow it up the trellis, and I'm maximizing the sun in here versus putting that trellis right here, putting the plants behind it, and then the plants themselves cast shade onto themselves. I hope that makes sense. A couple of T-posts, different kind of fencing wire. You can build trellises, you know, really however you want. And I like this design. Let me cut in here because I forgot this part of the garden. So this is the ladder mesh. This is another way to use it. These are 10-foot pieces, and you know, perfect rainbow going both ways. You can grow whatever you want up those. I mean, it's nice and solid, and they're just sunk right into the soil of these fire rings. They're really, really versatile, and I've done that with all 4 of these. Probably put some peas in here first, kale in the middle, and then this will stay, you know, basically cool weather crops. Maybe I'll be putting in some beans, I don't know. In here, this is concrete mesh. Like when you're pouring concrete, you can buy these pieces of metal, and I just tuck them in. I've showed you this before, right around the edge of this raised bed, and you can weave whatever you want through there, nice and solid. You know, it's a great way to trellis. Let me come around this way. These are my fabric pots and a couple things that I'm using in there. This is that concrete mesh again. So again, tucked into half of this root pouch fabric pot, and I'll just trellis right up at that. You can use the different tomato cages, the thicker gauges. They're nice and solid, and I like using those for the different containers, fabric pots, etc. But this concrete mesh is really versatile because that's the piece that I also have right in here to go straight up and get a good 7 feet of vertical growing by just using those T-posts. Now if we come right to here, I get questions about this, about how to place your beds. I mean, technically, beds are beds. Just because I have the length going that way, you could say these are placed south to north, north to south, with the longer portion going that way, so that this, you know, southern sun drops down in here. Same with my path. That's probably most important, as I have the wider path with the sun behind me so that more sunlight falls right down here, and then I have the thinner paths going east to west. And this is just a way to maximize the sun. It's not so much the shape of your beds. I mean, they're going to get hit with the sun no matter where they are. But the main path I have set up is that I go south to north, and lots of sun beams right down in there, versus having it more narrow, everything's closer together, and then the wider paths on the other side. It's just, you know, something you might want to consider redesigning or designing your gardens. So I guess we'll take just one more walk through. Vertical gardening is a great way to grow cucumbers, melons, cantaloupe, smaller watermelons, pumpkins, gourds, butternut squash, winter squash. They can all grow up something like this cattle panel. It's just the weight of the fruit you'd have to worry about. You'd have to support that some way if you're getting into fruit that starts weighing, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12 pounds or more. But you can grow anything up here. I weave tomatoes through this. You can see I weaved cherry tomatoes up here for the shade that I wanted to fall down there. These are all going to be, I've talked about that, these are going to be my root crop garden in here. I just added that. But with the way that it's set up, I have my southern sun always cuts across this way. So all of my plots, unless I put up the trellising, have the major walkways right down the middle, and it's just a way to maximize the sun. And then you start thinking about how you want to drop your trellises. Like if you noticed, all my trellising is east to west down this main area, so that maximum sun is falling here, maximum sun is falling there. And then where I came up, with this strategy for more shade, then I would go east to west, I would go north to south with the rainbow so that it casts shade into the property. All right, so I think that's a good start for Friday Morning Ramblings. Again, I'm very excited for 2022. I wish you luck. I encourage you to experiment, try some new things, expand if you want, but don't be afraid to change it up. Enjoy the garden, make it productive, but also think about things that really bring you pleasure in a garden. Maybe you're just looking at it, sitting there, it's a focal point, not totally functional for food production, but you get some food out of it, but you really like the way it looks. Like I love this arch, and you can see how this arch is almost 8 feet tall, just depending on how much space you put in here versus the one I showed you before, which was down a little bit lower. And you can do all kinds of fun things. I mean, you could build, I'm thinking of, just chatting about what I'm doing with the hops vines up there. Maybe I will put some wire across here and grow some cool gourds mixed in with the hops. I think that will look really cool. It'll just be kind of like a wall of art. All right, well, thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and more Friday ramblings will come. Not every week, because the garden's going to look like this next week and the week after, but trellising is a big deal. Vertical gardening is a big deal. Think about it. Maybe you'll add it to your garden. Thanks for watching.